In his early years, the beloved Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh worked unsuccessfully at various jobs. Then, in 1880, at the age of 27, he decided to become a full-time artist. Later, during the 2 years he spent in Paris, Vincent's art underwent a profound transformation. At the beginning of 1888, he traveled to Arles and found sanctuary in the warm sun and vibrant colors of Provence. On May 1st of that year, Vincent rented part of the so-called Yellow House, where he dreamt of making a studio of the South and of starting an artists' collective community. His much-beloved series of sunflower paintings was created to decorate the house. Vincent produced 2 series of sunflower paintings as still-life works. The first was painted in Paris in 1887, and the other, more well-known series was executed in Arles between 1888 and 1889. Back in December 1887, in Paris, he had exchanged 2 of his Paris sunflower paintings for a work by the French post-impressionist artist Paul Gauguin, and Gauguin liked the paintings very much. Although the symbolism widely employed in Flemish paintings should not have been unfamiliar to a Dutch artist like Vincent, he had his own way of using symbols. The choice of sunflowers to decorate Gauguin's room was not only a friendly, welcoming gesture, as Gauguin loved the sunflowers Vincent had painted in Paris, but perhaps also conveyed a hint of his admiration for Gauguin. For Vincent, sunflowers also symbolized warmth and gratitude, reflecting the optimism and hope in his mind at the time. The sunflowers in the paintings were deliberately arranged in ways to represent different blooming and seeding stages, thus embodying the cycle of life. In these works, we can see Vincent's experiments in using a wide spectrum of yellows and in applying pigments. Some areas are like a relief on which he squeezes the pigments out of the tube directly onto the canvas. In the summer of 1888, Vincent began painting nocturnal scenes, as in Café Terrace at Night and Starry Night over the Rhone. In Café Terrace at Night, the warm yellow in the terrace area smoothly transits to the blue of the neighboring structures, veiled by the evening light, and the foreshortened lines guide our eyes to the depth of the street. Above the narrow opening between the dark silhouettes of the dwellings, contrasted with the busy cafe, the serene sky is adorned with brilliant stars. This is the first of Vincent's 3 starry sky paintings. Vincent first met Gauguin in Paris, and the primitive, poetic, and mystical elements in Gauguin's work deeply impressed Vincent and Theo. Vincent invited Gauguin to come and paint with him, and looked up to him as his mentor with deep sincerity. Gauguin arrived in Arles on October 23, 1888. In the subsequent 2 months, he and Vincent painted together, discussed art and their techniques, and influenced each other. On Gauguin's suggestion, Vincent tried to paint from memory and imagination, such as in the Red Vineyard, the only work Vincent saw during his lifetime. However, their differences deteriorated their friendship. Vincent, with his earnest heart and intense, volatile personality, enthusiastically visualized his dream of the Studio of the South with Gauguin's participation, while Gauguin, the man of the world, had his own idea about his stay in Arles. The differences resulted in many fervid disputes. Gauguin's intention to leave Arles shattered Vincent's utopian dream of brotherhood and an artist's commune, and he fell into depression. Among many other factors, their fierce arguments escalated the tension between them and finally triggered Vincent's mental breakdown and self-mutilation on December 23, 1888. Vincent was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and after that time was no longer his old self and struggled with many relapses. His neighbors organized a petition demanding that he move out of the Yellow House. Although Vincent unrelentingly picked up his paintbrush between his relapses, he was racked with feelings of extreme loneliness. On May 8, 1889, Vincent voluntarily entered St. Paul de Mausolée Asylum in Saint-Rémy de Provence. Vincent was granted a studio, and many of his best-known works were created there, among them the beloved Starry Night. Starry Night was painted through a combination of Vincent's memories, his imagination, and his observations through the barred window of his room. The entire painting is governed by a spectrum of blue. In the midst of the sleeping village, the roof of the little church breaks the continuous mountain line connecting the poetic and dynamic starry sky. The work emits transcendental energy and reveals a celestial wonder, just as Vincent wrote to Theo on August 18, 1888.
Still to feel the stars and the infinite clearly up there, then life is almost magical after all.
The painting is now housed in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art, New York. While he was in Saint-Rémy, Vincent painted from views through his window, and due to a shortage of subject matter, he also painted some facsimiles of the works of artists he admired, in addition to some repetitions of his own works. During his much appreciated supervised walks, Vincent painted the hospital interior, nearby fields, and the hospital garden. One of the works from this period is Irises, which sold for $53.9 million at Sotheby's in 1987, a record-setting auction price at the time. From the beginning of the year 1890, Vincent's works began to gain recognition. He was invited to participate in the exhibitions of the 20, as well as the Société des Artistes Indépendants, in which the leading French Impressionist painter Claude Monet commented that Vincent's work was the best in show. In May 1890, upon Theo's suggestion, Vincent was discharged from the asylum in Saint-Rémy and moved to Auvers-sur-Oise, a suburb of Paris, to be nearer to Dr. Paul Gachet and Theo. During the last 2 months of his life, he painted nearly 70 works. In these paintings, we see the culmination of Vincent's achievement in the maturity of his style, the boldness in the use of color, and the expressiveness of his brushwork. Among these paintings, the portrait of Dr. Gachet was another record breaker at an auction 100 years after it was painted. On July 27, 1890, Vincent came home with a gunshot wound in the chest and died 30 hours later with Theo by his side. 6 months later, Theo also passed away. The two brothers were buried side by side at the Auvers-sur-Oise cemetery. Wheat Field with Crows, a painting filled with ill omens, is claimed to be Vincent's last finished work. Vincent left an enormous legacy following his short creative career and fleeting life. His works speak eloquently of his hope, devotion, love, and sensibilities, as well as his sadness, extreme loneliness, and unrelenting struggles. Soon after Vincent's death, a new generation of artists found inspiration in his art, and before long, his paintings received enthusiastic recognition. They were elevated to one of the most adored series of works in art history. This staggering contrast unfolds a sad revelation, as our beloved Supreme Master Ching Hai earnestly advised.
I feel the world should encourage artists more in different ways, should appreciate more their work, offer them more recognition and appreciation, offer more support, and offer more respect in all ways, all means, all aspects. And above all, not wait until they leave our world in misery, then sell their soul-stirring, heart-touching products for millions of dollars, while the artists themselves struggle with meager existence when they are alive among us.
Like a shooting star, Vincent van Gogh flashed across our earthly sky and left one of history's most blazing trajectories, forever brightening the hearts of the viewers.
Starry, starry night, flaming flowers that brightly blaze, swirling clouds in violet haze, reflect in Vincent's eyes of china blue, colors changing hue, morning hues of amber green, weathered faces lying in pain are soothed beneath the artist's loving hand. Now I understand what you try to say to me, how you suffered for your sanity, how you tried to set them free. They would not listen, they did not know how. Perhaps they'll listen now, for they could not love you, but still your love was true. And when no hope was left in sight on that starry, starry night, you took your life as lovers often do. But I could have told you, Vincent, this world was never meant for one as beautiful as you.
I seek, I pursue, my heart is in it.
Magnanimous viewers, thank you for your company today during Vincent van Gogh, Infusing Life and Heart into Each Brushstroke, Part 3 of 3.